The silence of sand. The sun was a merciless orb above the Arizona desert, radiating heat like a furnace over the cracked earth. The sand shimmered with heat waves, and not a soul stirred as far as the eye could see. It was in this vast emptiness that Eliza Walker, a woman in her early 40s, found herself stranded, alone, and on the edge of death. Her boots were caked with dust. Her lips dry and cracked, whispered the same name over and over, Tom. Her late husband's name, the one who had promised her a fresh start when they left Missouri after the war, but the promise had turned to ash long before the desert swallowed her. The wagon train they had joined had been attacked weeks earlier, not by raiders, but by the elements, drought, illness, panic, and in the end, a fateful decision to split from the group and follow a shortcut through Navajo land. Tom had died from a rattlesnake bite 3 days before they were supposed to reach the Colorado River. Eliza buried him under a twisted juniper tree, marked only with a cross made of wagon wood. Since then, she had wandered aimlessly. The food was gone. The waterskin had long since dried. Her dress, once a soft blue, was now faded and torn, stiff with sweat and dust. She had stopped counting how many days had passed. She stumbled, falling hard onto the hot sand. The heat seared through her thin clothing. She didn't bother to rise. Her cheek pressed into the gritty ground, and all she could think about was how quiet everything was. No birds, no wind, just the vast silence of sand. And then -hoofbeats. At first, she thought it was a mirage. The desert was full of tricks, but the sound grew louder, steadier, real. Her fingers twitched. She dared not open her eyes. What if it was death riding in at last? But it wasn't death. It was Atsa Yazi, a young Navajo warrior, riding back from a sacred errand for his grandfather. He spotted the shape in the sand from the ridge, barely a silhouette, half swallowed by the earth. His first instinct was caution. White settlers had been pushing deeper into their land, often with rifles and no understanding. But the woman didn't move. She looked dead. Still, something in his chest tugged at him, a voice, maybe from his ancestors, or maybe from his own conscience. He urged his paint horse forward. He approached slowly, scanning for signs of an ambush. None. He dismounted and crouched beside her, his shadow falling over her broken body. Else, he murmured in Navajo woman. She stirred slightly. Atsa reached into his pouch and pulled out a small waterskin. He gently poured a trickle of water over her lips. She coughed, sputtered, then blinked at him with eyes sunken from thirst. Her voice was almost inaudible. Please, you need help, he said, unsure if she could understand. Her eyes rolled back in her head. Unconscious again, Atsa looked around. He had supplies, but not enough for 2 people for long. He could leave her here and send someone later, or take her with him, risking everything. The route back to the canyon was long and rough, and his grandfather would not approve of bringing a settler home. Still, he couldn't leave her. He gently lifted her into his arms. She was light as a child. He secured her to his horse, then mounted behind, keeping her steady. With a click of his tongue, they began the slow ride east toward the hidden canyons where his people still lived untouched. As they rode, Atsa whispered old songs to the wind. He didn't know who she was or why she had come here. All he knew was that he had seen too many dead in this desert already. This one, he would not let die. The warrior's burden. The desert sun began to sink behind the mesas, casting long shadows over the red earth as Atsayazi pressed onward. His horse's hooves stirring small clouds of dust with every careful step. The narrow trail snaked through jagged rocks and prickly sagebrush, but the warrior did not falter. Every mile took him further from his people's hidden home and deeper into uncertainty. Eliza lay slumped against him, fragile as the desert bloom that somehow defied the brutal heat. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cool but dry, and her eyes, half-lidded, still caught between the fading line of consciousness and a world that no longer seemed real. Atsa could feel the weight of her life in his hands. But even heavier was the weight of what he was risking. For generations, the Navajo had guarded their lands, their traditions, and their people fiercely. Outsiders were often threats. Warriors, like Atsa, were trained to defend their tribe, not carry strangers through the desert. If his grandfather or the elders learned he had brought a white woman into their secret canyon, the consequences could be dire. But as Atsa rode, his mind wandered back to the woman's face, parched, dusty, and haunted by sorrow. Who was she? What had driven her so far into the wilderness, alone and vulnerable? It was unlike anything he had seen before. To him, she was more than a stranger. She was a living soul on the brink. And no one deserved to die this way. The twilight air cooled slightly, and the warrior's horse slowed to a steady pace. Atsa knew the water source at the bottom of the canyon could sustain them for a few days. He prayed silently to the holy people, asking for guidance and protection. His grandfather's teachings echoed in his mind, the importance of kindness, of balance, of life. When they finally reached the narrow canyon's mouth, Atsa carefully dismounted. He laid Eliza down beneath the shade of a juniper tree, wrapping her loosely in a blanket he carried. Then he hurried to fill his water skin from a trickling spring nearby. Eliza stirred again, her eyes flickering open just long enough to see the dark-haired man beside her. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Thank you." Atsa smiled gently but said nothing. Words were hard between them, his Navajo tongue, her broken English. But in that moment, they understood each other through the simple language of mercy. That night, as the stars blinked into the desert sky, Atsa built a small fire to keep the chill at bay. He kept watch beside Eliza, listening to the crackling flames and the distant howls of coyotes. The silence between them was heavy but healing. Atsa thought of the stories his grandfather told him, the sacred connection between people and the land, the way the desert could both take and give life. He vowed to honor that balance by protecting the woman who had no one left. Days passed. Eliza's strength slowly returned, aided by water, rest, and the warmth of Atsa's presence. Though their worlds were different, a fragile trust grew between them, woven through quiet moments and shared struggles. In saving her, Atsa risked everything, his standing with the tribe, his future, even his own safety. But deep inside, he knew this was the path he was meant to walk. Because sometimes, saving a life means defying tradition and listening to the call of the heart. Awakening and understanding, the morning sun filtered gently through the branches of the juniper tree, casting a soft glow over the quiet canyon floor. Eliza blinked against the light, her body weak but no longer numb. She felt the cool earth beneath her and the steady beat of a heart nearby. Atsis, for the first time in what felt like an eternity. She was not alone. Slowly, she pushed herself up on one elbow and saw the young Navajo warrior sitting nearby, sharpening a knife with a small stone. His movements were calm, deliberate, a quiet rhythm that seemed to belong to the land itself. His dark eyes met hers, and a small, reassuring smile curved his lips. "Eliza," she whispered, her voice fragile, "where, am I?" Atsa pointed toward the winding canyon path behind them. "Safe," he said simply. She tried to remember how she had gotten here, the endless sun, the thirst, the death of Tom. Her fingers clenched in the dirt as the memories rushed back like a cruel tide, but despite the pain, a flicker of hope ignited inside her. "Thank you," she managed, tears welling in her eyes. Atsa nodded, his face serious. He couldn't speak much English, but his heart understood her gratitude. Over the next days, they communicated in gestures and broken words, learning each other's stories in the language of survival. Eliza told him about the journey west, about Tom, and the wagon train that had scattered. She spoke of fear and loss, of loneliness deeper than the desert itself. Atsa listened, sharing tales of the Navajo people, their customs, their connection to the land, the sacred balance of life and death. Despite the difference in culture, they found common ground, loss, courage, and the fragile thread that binds all living things. But healing was not easy. Eliza's body was weak, her muscles stiff from days without water or food. Atsa hunted small game and gathered edible plants, teaching her what was safe to eat and drink. He showed her how to find water beneath the sand, how to read the signs of the desert, the birds, the wind, the stones. Each lesson was a gift, a lifeline in a world that had once seemed so cruel. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the canyon walls, Eliza sat beside the fire and asked the question that had been haunting her. "Why, why help me?" Atsa looked into the flames, his expression distant but honest. "In my people's stories," he said slowly, "there is a path for all. Sometimes, we are chosen to help others, even strangers. The land gives, and the land takes. But it also teaches us to care for each other." Eliza nodded, tears falling silently. "I thought I was alone." "You are not alone now," he said. Their bond grew stronger each day, born of shared struggle and quiet kindness. And yet, beyond the safety of the canyon, dangers waited. Settlers and soldiers roamed the edges of Navajo land, suspicion and fear burning in their eyes. Atsa knew that hiding Eliza here was only temporary. Eventually, They would have to face the world beyond the canyon's shelter, a world where their alliance might bring both hope and hardship. But for now, beneath the vast desert sky, two souls from different worlds found solace in each other's presence, a fragile promise of survival and trust in a harsh, unforgiving land. Shadows beyond the canyon. The peaceful days in the canyon were a brief reprieve from the harshness of the desert, but Atsa knew it couldn't last. News from the outskirts of their land was troubling. Settlers pushing further west. Soldiers patrolling with suspicion and hostility. The fragile safety they had found was like a thin veil stretched over a gathering storm. Eliza, now stronger but still cautious, sat beside Atsa one morning, watching the sunrise paint the canyon walls in gold and crimson. Her fingers traced the worn fabric of her dress, and her eyes searched the horizon as if trying to read the future in the shifting light. "We can't stay here forever," Atsa said quietly, breaking the silence. His gaze was steady, but a shadow of worry crept into his dark eyes. "My people will want to know about you, and others, less friendly, may come looking." Eliza nodded. The truth was undeniable. Her life was tangled in this land now, but the world outside was dangerous. Yet the thought of returning to the settlements, where distrust and prejudice awaited, filled her with dread. Their plans changed abruptly one afternoon, when a scout from the Navajo village arrived, riding hard and urgent. His message was grim. A band of soldiers had been spotted moving toward the canyon, hunting for trespassers and anyone who might aid them. Atsa's heart tightened. Protecting Eliza meant risking more than just his standing with the tribe. It could ignite a conflict that neither wanted. As dusk fell, they prepared to leave. Atsa packed what supplies he could carry, while Eliza gathered her strength, determined to face whatever lay ahead. The warrior taught her how to move quietly through the brush, how to listen for the smallest sound, how to trust the land to guide them. Their journey out of the canyon was tense and slow, every shadow a possible threat, every rustle in the underbrush a warning. The bond between them deepened in those moments of vulnerability, Eliza relying on Atsa's knowledge and courage, Atsa inspired by her resilience and quiet determination. One night, under a blanket of stars, they made camp near a dry creek bed. Eliza shared a small piece of bread she had saved, and Atsa offered a handful of wild berries. They talked in broken sentences and gestures, weaving their hopes and fears into the firelight. But peace was shattered the next day. As they navigated a narrow pass, the sharp crack of rifles echoed through the rocks. Soldiers appeared, guns drawn and faces set in grim resolve. Atsa stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. But the soldiers saw only a warrior and a white woman, suspected enemies. Intruders on forbidden land. Eliza's heart pounded. She reached for Atsa's hand, her lifeline in this uncertain world. "Wait," she called out, her voice steady despite the fear. "We mean no harm." The soldiers hesitated, but suspicion was thick in the air. Atsa and Eliza were captured and bound, taken to a nearby fort where the commandant questioned them relentlessly. Their story, a tale of survival, compassion, and unexpected alliance, was met with skepticism. In a world ruled by fear and prejudice, a Navajo warrior protecting a settler was seen as betrayal or threat. Yet, amidst the cold barracks and harsh words, Eliza and Atsa held on to the truth they had found in the desert, that courage sometimes meant standing together against all odds, even when the world refused to understand. Trials of trust. The fort's cold stone walls echoed with the harsh clang of metal and the guarded whispers of suspicion. Eliza and Atsa sat apart in the dimly lit cell, their hands still bound but their spirits unbroken. They shared a quiet glance, a silent vow not to surrender to despair. The commandant, a stern man named Major Harrington, paced the room outside their cell. He had heard the stories from the scouts, and now he faced a choice: view the Navajo warrior and the White Widow as allies or enemies. His mind was clouded by years of mistrust and conflict between settlers and native tribes. Yet something about their calm resilience gave him pause. Eliza, despite her fragile health, found a strength she hadn't known she possessed. Using the few words she could muster in broken Navajo and sign language Atsa had taught her, she tried to convey the truth of their story of survival, compassion, and the sacred bond that had formed between them in the desert's unforgiving embrace. Atsa, too, remained steadfast. He spoke of honor, of the Navajo way of life, and of the belief that all beings were connected through the land. His voice was low but unwavering, a testament to the values his grandfather had instilled in him. Days passed in uncertainty, the walls closing in like the desert night. Yet, during their confinement, something remarkable happened. Major Harrington, began to question his own prejudices. He listened as Eliza described the warrior who had saved her life, not as an enemy, but as a guardian. He heard Atsa speak of the land's sacred balance and the pain caused by endless conflict. Slowly, the commandant's stern facade softened. Against the advice of his officers, he ordered their release, not as prisoners, but as witnesses to a fragile hope. Freed but wary, Eliza and Atsa found themselves at a crossroads. They could return to the safety of the Navajo Canyon or face an uncertain future together in a world divided by fear and misunderstanding. Their journey continued, marked by moments of kindness and hostility alike. Settlers whispered rumors, some offering help, others watching with suspicion. But through it all, the bond between the widow and the warrior grew stronger, a bridge between two worlds. Long kept apart, in the quiet moments beneath the desert stars, they shared dreams of peace and reconciliation, of a future where trust might replace fear. And though the path ahead was uncertain, they knew one thing with clarity: their lives were forever changed, bound by courage, sacrifice, and the enduring power of hope. Bridges across the divide. The desert was vast, but so was the chasm between the worlds Elisa and Atsa came from. After their release from the fort, they knew that survival alone wasn't enough. Something deeper had to be built: trust, respect, and a shared hope for peace. Eliza's journey back to the settlements was filled with wary glances and whispered doubts. Many had heard of her rescue by a Navajo warrior and were skeptical, some openly hostile. Yet, she spoke boldly of Atsa's courage and honor, challenging long-held fears and prejudices. Atsa, too, faced skepticism from his own people. Some elders questioned his choice to protect a settler, fearing it would invite retribution from soldiers and settlers alike. Yet his grandfather, wise and steady, saw something more: a chance to heal old wounds and teach a new way forward. Together, Eliza and Atsa began meeting with leaders on both sides, sharing their story as a testament to what courage and compassion could achieve. They spoke at gatherings beneath the open sky, where Navajo and settlers listened, some with disbelief, others with cautious hope. Eliza learned Navajo traditions and language, deepening her respect for the people who had saved her. Atsa walked the fields and towns, showing his people that understanding could be stronger than fear. Their partnership became a symbol, a living bridge between two worlds. But change was slow and often met with resistance. Some settlers held tight to suspicion, while some Navajo elders feared loss of identity and safety. Tensions flared when incidents of violence erupted on both sides, threatening to unravel the fragile peace. In those moments, Elisa and Atsa stood firm, reminding all that their bond was proof of something greater. They advocated for dialogue, for patience, and for the recognition that the land belonged to all who respected it. Their efforts bore fruit over time. Agreements were reached for shared water rights, for protection of sacred lands, and for cooperation in times of crisis. Children from both communities began learning together, their laughter a hopeful melody against the desert wind. Through it all, Eliza and Atsa's friendship blossomed into something deeper, a testament to the power of empathy and the possibility of unity. They had come from different worlds, but they had forged a new path, one built not on fear or division, but on understanding and shared humanity. Legacy of hope. Years passed like the shifting desert sands, gentle yet relentless. The story of Eliza Walker and Atsa Yazzie became more than just a tale of survival. It grew into a legacy that shaped the land and the people who called it home. Their friendship, born of desperation and kindness, had sparked something unexpected. A fragile peace between settlers and the Navajo people, a bridge across a divide that seemed impossible to cross. Eliza had made a new life in the Navajo community, her heart tied forever to the land that once nearly claimed her. She learned their language fluently, participated in ceremonies, and was accepted as one of their own. The widow who had once wandered lost in the desert now walked with confidence and purpose. Atsa, once a young warrior bound by tradition, had become a respected leader, known for his courage not only in battle, but in healing the wounds of conflict. His bravery in saving Eliza was remembered not as an act of rebellion but as a profound demonstration of Navajo values: compassion, respect, and balance. Together, they worked tirelessly to foster understanding, reminding both communities that survival depended not on conquest but cooperation. Their story was told around fires, in schools, and at gatherings, a beacon of hope in troubled times. The land itself seemed to honor their bond. The desert blooms that had once been so rare began to flourish. Rivers flowed steadier, and animals returned to the canyons and mesas. as if the earth responded to the healing between its people. Eliza and Atsa often sat beneath the same juniper tree where their journey began, reflecting on the twists of fate that brought them together. They understood that their lives were intertwined not by chance but by choice, the choice to see each other's humanity in a world too often divided by fear. Their legacy was not just a story of rescue but a testament to the enduring power of courage, empathy, and the belief that even in the harshest places, hope can take root and grow. And in the heart of the desert, under an endless sky, their friendship stood as a timeless reminder that sometimes, saving a life means changing the world.